Hey, I'm Lauren, certified building biologist, wellness interior designer, and healthy home educator. I want to welcome you to the Haus Holistics podcast, where we explore how healthy buildings create healthy people. I'll be bringing you life-enhancing conversations with some of the brightest minds in the world. Perhaps your full potential is on the other side of a healthier environment. I'm your host, Lauren Rade. Let's go deeper. Before we go into the project that you're at, I want to lay a very brief foundation of who you are and who Conway Architectural Salvage and Heritage Project is. And so I actually pulled a few stats from your website that I want to read. And by now, you have probably surpassed these numbers based on the project that you're doing.
Yeah.
But this will kind of give a feel for people listening, the impact that your project is having, especially in our local area. So your website says that you all have kept 2.6 million pounds of historic building materials out of the landfill.
Yeah.
You all have kept 650 pounds of wood for reuse on historic preservation projects and community development. You have saved 90,000 pounds of historic brick and repurposed them as porous driveway pavers to promote water retention, which is awesome, and a healthy soil. It gets even better. 7,000 pounds of wood was reused for raised beds and fencing. 6,000 pounds of wood was repurposed in an art project. 4,000 pounds of cinder block was redirected to be used in an artificial reef project off the South Carolina coast. That is so cool.
That's my favorite.
And then all of that took 8,640 hours of volunteer time to make it all possible. So with that being said, who are you? What are you doing?
Yeah. No, wow. Well, to hear numbers like that, when you actually, obviously I've seen the numbers and I've read the numbers, but to hear them said out loud, it kind of hits home, yeah. So first of all, yeah, the numbers are higher actually at this point.
Of course.
Yeah. So the building right now is probably in itself, close to 2 million pounds, that we're working on now in terms of, materials. So we can add that, but so who am I? I'm many things, I guess. I wear many different hats, but they're actually in my mind pretty closely related. I'm a professor at Coastal Carolina University. And I earned my PhD from Duke University in 2014. And then I was hired at Coastal shortly afterwards. But I'm a trained archaeologist and historian. And so it's really in that training and in that background that I came to over time, especially after moving to Conway, to really appreciate material culture and artifacts and, human-made products that that I study in my academic background go back several thousand years. But the stuff that we're doing now is essentially modern archaeology, I guess we could say, because in addition to retrieving the materials that would otherwise end up in landfill through the process of deconstruction for reuse, we record the histories of those structures and write the architectural lived histories, and then all that information gets tagged to the materials once they go back into the system. And all of that, we also create a virtual, we have a backlog. We have quite a bit to do here, but we should be producing pretty soon some virtual reality reconstruction of the buildings that we have deconstructed, so that in some aspect, the structures that we've deconstructed can continue to live on, and research and kind of their provenance or provenience can get produced so that we know where the materials come from. All that is, I guess, to say it's all closely connected in my mind, in the sense that what I do as an academic, I guess, and now in my life as the executive director of nonprofit, is to, you know, record and appreciate and to love and to harness and to give life again to artifacts. I guess what it comes down to. So there's a very long trajectory in the way I got here, which we can get into more. But I think that the crux of it is that I got sick of seeing so many of these valuable and essentially these materials that don't exist anymore being sent to the landfill. And so over the past 2 years, the nonprofit, it'll be official over this August, it'll be 2 years. Prior to that, I had been working on creating the nonprofit. So in addition to doing what the nonprofit has done officially, we have also, I've been doing it for a few more years prior to all that too. So I guess I could start because there's a lot. You keep going.
Well, so where we totally vibe is the preservation of historic architecture. And over the years, many years of my life, I would get so frustrated when I would see these historic homes just demolished and taken to the landfill.
Yeah.
And I would think, gosh, like that is so inherently wasteful. Like, I wish there was a solution to this problem. And so when I met you at a speaking engagement you did at Brook
Yeah.
Green Gardens, I was just so thankful because you are essentially presenting a brilliant solution to a problem that exists in our local region. Because people don't have respect
Mhm,
for these homes that have these amazing building materials, and it's just essentially gone to waste when it ends up in a landfill.
mhm, mhm.
So, I was very excited to meet you and see all the things that you're doing. And that's basically it's you do a lot of things, Alan, but you are deconstructing buildings and then you're eventually going to make them available to the public.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, so we what in a nutshell, what we are doing is, we kind of see ourselves as the best worst answer, if that makes sense. One thing I like to say is the greenest building, the most sustainably constructed building is one that already exists, right? The one that's standing. And so one thing I try to emphasize is that we don't want to take any of these buildings down. Um, because of the appreciation for these historic structures and certainly the materials. But there are certainly situations, some I think more justifiable than others, when buildings have to come down. I'm thinking of, just for an example, it's tobacco barns that are leaning and they likely will fall down. No one's using them, and it poses for the owners, liability issues, things like that. That to me is the easiest situation because we can kind of just give these buildings a little poke and they'll come down, and then we can recover their longleaf pine, the old growth materials that are just doesn't exist anymore. In some cases, the wood, the trees that this wood came from could have started growing in the area 1200s, 1300s, 1400s, so several hundred years old. And so we're able to recover those. There are buildings that the owners have made a decision that it'd be cost prohibitive, for example, to remodel or to actually make functional again. And so in those cases, those are probably the next best kind of examples of deconstruction. But in every case, we record the histories, as I said, so that we then process the materials on site usually. And by processing, we mean denailing. Sometimes some of the pieces at the ends will break a bit, so we'll cut off those ends. Even in those cases, though, we try to preserve at least the wood. If it's clean wood, it doesn't have, say, paint on it or something like that. And we'll even try to reuse that at one of our sites that, Lauren, you've been to. But so the other side of it, and to get to your point where we supply these materials to those for the general public, we have a historic lumber yard that we're restoring and we're working towards getting our certificate of occupancy. And so soon we'll have that space where all the wood that we have is available to those that want it. In addition to that, we have a large property called the Ice House property. It's a large brick building that we want to use, and actually this goes for both sites. We're using both properties as an example of innovative material reuse, right? So there's this kind of, I guess we could say, almost like a backdoor way of demonstrating to all those observing um, why and how this is so important. Using our properties to demonstrate to people how you can put materials back into reuse, so that the properties themselves serve as examples of, I would say, something like conscientious development or something like that, where we have properties that and I've been told this by city officials that they're eyesores. This is before we started on the project. But here we have these properties that most people had written off, and now we're demonstrating slowly but surely how they can be renovated and rebuilt in a way to where they actually productively add to the communities and to society. So in addition to reusing materials on the renovations, we're using the property, especially the Ice House property, to absorb water. As you noted, the bricks that we laid into the ground was able to raise it a bit, but also remain porous, so that the property continues to absorb water. But I think the shining example is going to be when we redo the roof for the Ice House property, which we have to. It's pretty damaged. Where it'll be a green roof. It'll be growing stuff on the roof to absorb water, so that so we're able to retain water in the area, which is, flooding is an issue. So this is why and I'm a professor, so I use too many words just by nature, I suppose, but that's why Conway Architectural Salvage and Heritage Project is everything, because this idea of project, it's very much a project. It's a community volunteer driven project. When I first started this, I came to realize that for it to work, we had to have community buy-in. And we've just stayed there. We're a grassroots community driven project, so that it's in many respects by the community and for the community. And eventually we'll have a permaculture garden, which I know you know quite a bit about, to where all of this is being fed and grown in a holistic way that's using water from the site to produce, eventually we'd like to think, food and shelter. And one thing I haven't noted yet, and then I'll stop for more here, is that we also keep about a third of our materials aside for those that need it the most. So we provide those materials to those that need it, to shore up the structures, that so that they can continue to stay standing, but also the people that own them can actually, have buildings and homes that continue to function, be part of their lives.
Hmm. Yeah, what you're doing is amazing and inspiring, and I'm obsessed with all the things. I feel like you're living a timeline that's different from mine, but like I am, yes, like
Yeah,
Alan, go run.
yeah, yeah.
One thing that you said that was really interesting that maybe some people don't realize is that when we have, let's just say we have, I don't know, a home from the mid 1800s. Someone comes down, they buy this property, it's falling apart. They don't care about renovating it. So typically what happens in my experience of the interior design and construction world is, hey, let's call a demo crew and let's get a rotation of dumpsters and
Hmm.
let's just take it to the landfill,
Hmm.
which is so sad, first of all. But we don't really think that that home from, say, mid 1800s may actually have wood from the 1600s or
Hmm. Hmm.
earlier,
Hmm.
because of the history of how people used to honor buildings and honor material reuse. So
Yeah.
there is often wood in these old homes that would blow your mind. I mean, I know you know, but would blow the audience mind of, oh my gosh, like we just threw away 400 years of history or more
Hmm.
just like that, because
Yeah.
we don't realize the value in our ancestors
Hmm.
fixing things or rehabbing parts of their homes. We have this mindset of, oh, I can just buy it new or I can just start over.
Hmm.
But the material health is really important here because I mean, as you know, with wood, it has some of the most amazing properties, and it
Mhm.
was typically sealed with a natural sealant like linseed oil or beeswax. So it has stayed natural versus a lot of times when we introduce natural materials into our built environments, we slap a synthetic coating on it, and
Mhm.
I'm not sure the natural material stays so natural.
Right, right. Well, Lauren, that you hit on so many important things there. The first thing is, I don't know how to put it. I think, yeah. So we have found ourselves caught up in a kind of machinery, so to speak, that is the construction demolition industry, writ large. And I want to be careful to note that I do not. There's no antagonism anymore for me on those involved in this machinery. You know, most folks that I have met and come across in kind of in the business as usual, they're simply just, this is what has come to be, right? Construction demolition is this linear now, kind of take, make, waste, linear economy. And that's just the nature of it. And I don't, what I think I've come to understand is a lot of the folks that involved, whether developers, demo crews, they are simply part of this now, right? Because that's how it works, is that we extract resources, we make stuff, and then we waste it. It's a mentality. It's a way of, a modus operandi, I guess we could say. But that said, that's one thing we're trying to change. We're trying to create then what we would call, which is much more sustainable and it's all the things that we're trying to talk about. And it's also what people have done historically, is create a circular economic model, right? So,
That's right.
and to your point, when we actually just came across an older gentleman yesterday. He's 84. He was still working. We delivered some rafters from the building that we recovered the rafters from the building we're working on. And I can say this publicly because it should be public knowledge. But USC, University of South Carolina, purchased many of these rafters from the building that we're deconstructing. So we delivered it to them because they're going to put it into a building to kind of showcase these historic materials. And when we pulled up, there's this gentleman there working with some of the metal that they had. They were kind of organizing some of that, and he's there, and he sees us roll up with these long rafters, and they're all longleaf heart pine, from this building that was built early 1900s. And he sees it, and he's about 20 feet away, and he gets off his truck. He jumps off the bed of this truck. Again, he's 84, and he comes running over, and he says, "Oh my God, that's longleaf heart pine. I haven't seen anything like that for about 50 years. When I took apart my grandparents' house that was built in the something like late 1800s, or he has it so that he could then build his house, right? Which is to say, we are doing what people have been doing for generations. And it's only somewhat recently, probably really got going in the 80s and 90s, to where this linear, especially when it comes to the built environment, the linear kind of economic model kicked in. And what we're so proud to be a part of is what we can call this movement of deconstruction. And what's significant about what we're doing is we are now recognized as a historic trade for everything we just talked about. The fact is, humans for generations and millennia have been reusing materials that their foreparents, extracted it and made into functional stuff, especially for the home. And we're doing it just how many people have done it for millennia. Whereas what is different and what is new and what is so destructive is what is the current model. And so we're trying to shift that, because so as a recognized trade now, we can also receive apprentices and all that, because it is so important. We are losing not just the materials, but also the knowledge of how these structures were built and how people use their hands using these materials to construct homes that they would live in for generations. And instead, what we have is this mass productive model that is harmful to people's health. It is horrible for the planet, and it is literally unsustainable. The size of the city of Paris is projected to be built by 2065, I think there's going to be a city the size of Paris every month on this planet. And we can't do that. That's not a thing, right? That's the point. Is but that is that is the number. Those are the numbers now, right? Not to say that a city size of Paris being built every month, but that's where we're headed. But it's getting close, and it's scary, and it's not necessary. It's simply, it's a mentality
Yep.
that has shifted pretty abruptly, and we have a chance to kind of to get it going back to how we used to do it.
Yeah, Ryan and I went antiquing this past weekend, as we do every week. And I always make a comment. I've been secondhand shopping my almost 3 decades. And you're right, it is a mentality of seeing something that maybe is used, but then realizing it's not done. It has so many more lives after that. But I just like made a side comment to Ryan, like, how I just don't get how people can just buy new things, like new dishware, when you
Mhm.
go to an antique store or a secondhand store and there is just hundreds of glasses and hundreds of plates. And it's like, that's just one little example
I think
of
that's a perfect example, and because it has all the things. If you think about why we need glassware or any kind of vessels, it's for functional reasons, right? I mean, this is a cup because the inside of it's empty, so it can hold liquid, and then I can get it into my body. It's a lot easier than putting my face under a faucet, although I'll do that too if I have to. But what I'm saying is, so in that, if we are thinking we need drinking vessels simply to get that liquid into us, then it doesn't matter where you get it or what it looks like, right? So, and this is coming from a guy who studied, my dissertation was on feast, looking at archaeological evidence, yeah, in Israel, to try to think about how feasts, that is communal meals, helped create Jewish society in
not
antiquity.
niche at all.
Yeah, right. So when I got out, I had about this much job experience, to other stuff I could do. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to invent my own job. So, but I say all that to say that speaks to the mentality of it all, right? Is that people are going and buying new dishes and dinnerware and this fine china and stuff, largely for status purposes
And
or for
aesthetic.
aesthetic purposes, which I want to be careful again. There isn't. I'm not trying to be a holier than thou and there's no antagonism in terms of what what I'm thinking about this, but it just is. It's a mentality that has taken over kind of a lot of how we think and do things, when slowing down, appreciating the used, appreciating the quality of older stuff. And I think that's one thing. If when I think of, when you talk about going antiquing, I think if nothing else, what you find is well-made stuff, usually, right? Because on average, typically this older, whether it's a table or armoire or whatever it is, and even vessels, drinking vessels and eating vessels, tend to be more handmade and less mechanized and less mass produced, and with that comes a certain amount of quality,
And
and that's
craftsmanship.
craftsmanship, right? And so we're losing that as well, and I think that ties into exactly what we're talking about when it comes to the homes and structures that we work on. Is that level of quality doesn't exist anymore. I mean, there are groups and people are trying to do it, but on average, and this then is the, I guess another thing is that in deconstruction, we also learn how buildings were built, right? So that's another element to what we're trying to do, is to revive the traditional crafts and trades. So in addition to everything else we're doing, we hope to have classes on, say, woodworking and pottery throwing and iron work or metalworking, that kind of stuff, because I can say, my students don't know how to use their hands anymore, except for perhaps phones. And again, no antagonism. That's just where we're caught up. But we have a chance to get them out again. And the experiences, and you had mentioned at the top of the show that the volunteer hours, right, which is close to probably 10,000 at this point if we add the current job, and people love it. They love it. It's they haven't had a chance. My students love it. I mean, they're bopping around looking for their special denailers and stuff, and they love doing it. They just haven't had an opportunity. And so with everything we're doing, I I can say that I love it for all the reasons, because it's actually making a physical and I think mental impact for the good. Um, and so I don't know how much those are my hands. So this is right. So this is it. Just it goes with the job, and but I can't say that like everyone needs to have hands like that. But it feels good. It's like you've done something when your hands look like this, and I just have to use some lotion sometimes because it gets
Well, you're giving your students and volunteers an opportunity to feel what empowerment feels like.
uh,
Because so often in our culture today, we are being fed this empirical code of disempowerment, of societal conditioning, of step in line, don't think outside the box. So your projects, Alan, what you and Sarah are doing for most of society is out of the box, literally.
yeah,
So it's almost like this new experience for your college students to get their hands dirty, to learn a skill, to learn a craft. And then, yeah, like, oh my gosh, my hands are all cut up and dirty. I feel like I did a really good,
yeah,
honorable job
yeah,
today. So I think
yeah,
it's brilliant what you are
yeah.
offering.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and I think I love that. Yeah, it is empowering. And I mean, if you know how to use some of these tools, which we actually try to, as much as we can, use some crowbars, some long 42-inch crowbars. That's the go-to tool, but we will use other tools. But regardless, if you can do that and you can take apart some buildings and put them back together, and you're using your hands, you can kind of do a lot of things if you think about it. If you had to, you could probably build your own house, and that's cool, right? Like that's a huge. Who knows? You need land, you need all the other things, but you might not need materials. If you can find a and to be able to build your own house, let alone grow your own food, is I think it just as mentality super empowering. And
Mhm.
because as you said, we have been, and this all ties into the linear economic model, is that we are so used to just standing there with our hands out and having something plopped into them, and whether it's food from fast food or even grocery stores. Again, it is not a negative commentary. It just is how what we become used to, versus a time and place where people had to scrap and figure out how to be creative to supply themselves with
Mhm.
life's necessities.
Mhm.
Now, an argument can be made, is that we don't want that anymore. We have reached a point in collective society that we can actually get these creature comforts, and I would argue that that is not necessarily a good place to be at the end of the day. I don't I'm not convinced having everything at our fingertips is necessarily a good thing at all. And so I think, again, this ties back into this nature of empowerment. You might not want or need to ever build your own home, but if you could figure out how you could do it, then you're gonna not only be able to do it, but appreciate the people that have built their own homes and and made
It's a
their own stuff.
feeling that one has to dance with to get a download of understanding of empowerment. Ryan
Yeah.
and I, about a month ago, went to a cob workshop. So it's,
I saw that. Yeah.
yeah. And the feeling that you leave when you learn a new trade or new skill is, I mean, I know this was a cob workshop. Like, I know we learned how to make houses out of clay, straw, aggregate, and a little bit of water, but I feel like I could take on the world, baby. Like, it's a feeling.
Yeah, imagine that. Imagine what you just said. You can make a structure out of a few earthen elements. It's not that hard. I guess that's another thing, is that there is certainly a physicality to what we do.
Right.
But what's also pretty cool is that you can figure out ways to do a lot of heavy stuff without moving, you think of leverage and all this other things. It's like it's not that hard. And also I think it ties into one thing that we battle with constantly, and we're battling with it right now with this current project is time contingencies, right? So our clients in many cases have certain time that they want certain things done. And while I respect that, and we do pretty well roughly, um, you don't, we're also trying to slow things down, you know? Right. And if you add that element into it and you think about building an earthen structure, anyone can kind of do that. And that's pretty amazing. If you take your time and you kind of just slather some mix in the aggregates and some water in the mud and all that stuff and add some straw and then kind of slowly over time build a wall. It's like, how amazing is that anyone can go to the backyard or somewhere close by and build something that can last for a long time. And it doesn't even have to be a structure. It could be a oven, right? It could be
Yeah,
what we would
pizza
call
oven.
an Israeli architecture or archaeology is a tabboon, which is like, and then you think about if you can make a tabboon, you can then start firing your own clay and making your own drinking vessels
Yeah.
out of clay.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah.
mean, it comes back to the circular economy
Hmm.
and permaculture being the king and queen of this principle. I mean, I think about one of Ryan's permaculture projects. He was helping create a garden, and they had chickens on the land. And so instead of going to get a tiller, buying a new tiller, he fenced in the chickens to
Yeah.
till the land, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
they are pooping and creating amazing fertilizer
Yep.
for the plants to go in. And then
Right.
the chickens are removed after the seeds are planted. And you've got fertilizer, you've got, tilled soil with all the minerals still there. And it's all on site versus this mentality and this thinking of, okay, like let me buy a new thing.
Hmm.
Actually, maybe my neighbor might have some fencing I could
Hmm.
use, or maybe my
Hmm.
neighbor might have this. And so
Hmm.
I really think it's encouraging people to think localized versus, hey, let me go buy some new tile from China
Hmm.
or from India
Hmm.
versus, hey, maybe Habitat for Humanity has some
Yeah.
tile that I can recycle. Or
Yeah.
maybe one day this would be so cool, we can make our own tile. So I love what you're doing because this is part of my work and passion too, is getting people to stop and think before they act. But you're right, it does slow the process down because people are so used to acting, acting,
Yeah.
acting versus considering
Hmm.
what is healthy and helpful to occupants and planetary well-being.
Yeah. Yeah. Well put.
Okay, Alan, I really want to talk about your project that you're working on.
Yeah.
So go ahead, spill the beans.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So it's a complicated, socially, culturally, well, maybe, yeah, um, all the things. Okay. So and we're getting close to completion, but we are deconstructing, a building just near the State House in Columbia. The building we refer to as 900 Main Street. It was formerly the Hunter Gatherer Brewery, which opened up, I think, in the 94, 96, and it was one of the first craft breweries in Columbia, which kind of started the scene. And it was a beloved building. People, I can't tell you how many folks I've spoken to who are very passionate about the fact that the building itself, but also sad to see it go. And one thing I've repeatedly said to everyone I've spoken to is that I'm sad to see it go. I don't think it had to come down. It's built like a tank. Um, and it's unfortunate. That said, by the time we were invited by Historic Columbia, which fought to keep the building standing, um, uh, we were invited in to do our thing. That ship had already sailed, and the alternative to what we're doing was demolition and landfilling, right? The reason for that is part of the reason for that is the building itself did not have any historic protections because that the owners of the building, and this was not hunter gatherer, they leased it, but the owner of the land and the building, um, they have to go through a certain process to get it on the register and to get those protections, and they simply did not. So that's all I know. And so by the time we were brought on the scene, it was USC Foundations purchased it, and their job, and again, no antagonism, their job is to purchase properties and to develop them in accordance with USC and for a whole host of other things that the university needs, right? A decision was made at some point that this building was not suitable for what was going to be needed, and that's all I know. So we were brought in by Historic Columbia. John Schur is the director of preservation there. He knew about what we were doing because of, I guess, just hearing about us. And so he called us in, and what we have done is we're going on our 5th week here. We've deconstructed everything, and now what remains is the brick. This is hugely, and we've think we've kept about 90% of the materials, the wood materials, saved about 90% of that.
Amazing.
And this stuff is just unbelievably beautiful. And for example, the beams, they're 12 by 12 by 15 feet beams. They're axe hewn. And what's fascinating is we believe that these beams were brought in from somewhere else for this building to be built in 1913. So these beams came from a structure that predates all of this. And the reason we think
I have
that is
goosebumps.
yeah. So there's mortise and tenon, and so you have these big beams, and then you have these whole, and then you have, it's basically like the dowels holding in the whole structure, and it's all done with pegs and that kind of thing. And in the current building that we've deconstructed, there was nothing lines up with those anymore, right? So what we think was these beams were brought in, and they lost their configuration when they were put in. So there's no more line up, there's nothing lines up anymore with that mortise and tenon. In any case, we're able to get pretty much all that out there. Now here's the most, I guess I would say, most beautiful part of it, despite everything, the building going away, is that this building also had a beautiful mural on the side of the north wall, the long wall. And the mural was done by a local artist, Lauren Andreu. And it was a depiction of a gentleman named Aaron Graves. He was in a band called the Lavender Whales, and he was apparently, I never met him, but he was just a very loving spirit. And he passed away from brain cancer in 2019. And so Lauren was good friends with him since high school, and his wife, now widow, Jessica, what they decided to do, and they worked with hunter-gatherer and owners of the building to paint a mural commemorating his life and kind of spirit on the side of this building. They were the ones who really fought to try to keep this building standing. And what ended up taking place, as we all now know, is that we were kind of brought in as this kind of middle ground. I have, over the past, in addition to leading and deconstructing this building and all its materials, I have been working with Lauren and Jessica very closely to make sure that those bricks from that mural stay separated and are palletized separately, so that Lauren and Jessica can determine how they want to memorialize Aaron Graves in the future with those same bricks.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So now the mural won't be re-put up. It's just, it was too, we could have done it, but that requires money and time, and it probably would have been another several months worth of work. And it was determined that probably, and this is again coming from Lauren, the artist, she thought it would actually be best to do something different. So, but meanwhile, using the same bricks. And so that should happen in the future. It's been a fascinating project, but overall, we think it'll amount to about 300 or so tons of materials we've kept out of the landfill.
Good job.
Yeah. And again, this stuff doesn't exist anymore. The bricks were fired just a couple blocks down the street at a local brick company. A lot of them have handprints in them still. So I think those are my favorite because it explicitly demonstrates the human connections to all the materials that we're doing. Now, the age of the building suggests that these were not from enslaved. That is certainly can be the case, especially in the region. And there's a huge field, thankfully, studying this type of kind of imprint of formerly enslaved people, especially in Charleston. But in this case, we just don't think that was the case. But all in all, it's been a beautiful, beautiful project. And even the bricks that we did have to bring down mechanically remain largely whole. And so we think about 80+%, if not 90 some percent of the bricks will also now be safe too.
Yeah. And were the volunteers from Columbia?
Yeah. So we were able to activate our volunteers that we needed from Columbia through the group established by Lauren and Jessica called I Love My Friends. And because that was one of Aaron Graves was a musician, artist, and that was one of his songs of Lavender Wales was I Love My Friends. And so they created a group called I Love My Friends, which is really this community-based group of people who want to fulfill his spirit. And so we had so many people out here. It's just been incredible. And actually, we'll have some more this afternoon and tomorrow as well.
What have been some of the comments that locals have said to you all as you've been working?
It sucks that's going down because I proposed to my wife there. Or I saw my favorite band there in the mid 90s. Or from the mayor of Conway, Barbara Blaine, she texted me saying when she started her master's work here in the 90s, that she went there when it first opened. The echoes of the sounds of the people who have collectively over the decades come to this place, you can still hear them in the stones. I don't know how to describe it. Not literally maybe, but it's like you hear people love this building. There's a mixture of being extremely upset that it's going away, but every comment to us has been nothing but love and support for what we're doing. And I think what that demonstrates to me is how what we are doing can have such a beautiful and deep impact, because people understand that they now have a chance for the stories of these materials, which will be told, can now go out into the world once again and live on, but also tell the stories of the building it came from and it's their origin stories. And I think there's been honestly, other than the frustration that the building's going away, nothing but love and support in what we're doing. And there's been many. I've cried with a couple folks who I don't know. Right? They'll walk by, clearly upset, and I'll be sure to come and to talk to them and explain. One, yeah, it is upsetting, and two, we now have a chance though to keep it alive, right? To keep this building and its stories and its interactions with us as humans alive and going, and spread it out.
Well, someone only has to talk to you for 30 seconds to realize you love old buildings.
Yeah.
And you are equally as sad to see history not necessarily taken down, but it is exciting to see it revamped.
Yeah.
And otherwise it would end up in the landfill. And otherwise it would be taken down maybe in a couple of weeks or less. Otherwise, it would have been tossed aside. Otherwise, people wouldn't have been able to share their stories of their proposals and their memories with someone who's on site. I mean, I just think the whole thing is almost a ministry in and of itself, because you are listening, you are coming from a place of I love this building too. You have such an empathetic heart, and it really does inspire people though to have this connection, this synapses connection go off in their brain. Oh, they're taking down this building I love, but they're not throwing it away. It's going to be recycled for another beautiful purpose.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so, have you been able to share with people that these materials can be repurchased?
Yeah, yeah. So all that's done really largely word of mouth so far on site. And in addition to folks who want to buy larger amounts, right? And we keep our price, despite the fact that many of these materials are, well, all of them are far superior than say anything you could get at the box stores, by far. We don't. I don't know. Our job is not to make a. We don't sell it for what we probably could sell it for. We want to see these materials go back into the system, and we want to see them live again. And so I just say that in terms of, yes, we do sell these materials, which helps the nonprofit function. It all goes back to the nonprofit. Um, but we've also just given away a lot of the bricks to passerbys who just want some, right? And are asking for them. It's like, yes, take this with you. It's a part of you and it and the collective human kind of bond that people have to this building. So yeah, and we'll have kind of, we're thinking a kind of a yard sale type thing tomorrow. We are getting ready to wrap things up, so we're trying to get a lot of the materials off site so that we don't take them back to Conway. We do want them to stay local. We have all the bricks. So I've managed to a lot of this is improv. So I play music as well, and I liken it to jazz, in the sense that there's this idea that there's no wrong note. It's what you do after that wrong note kind of idea.
Yeah.
And so what we've been doing is, the fact is, we got involved knowing that we could pull it off, but at the same time we had an alternative plan, which would mean the bricks would end up somewhere else, and a company would take them off. And in that sense, that's great. The materials would be reused, but it would be at that point that company would own those materials, whether it's the mural bricks or the non-painted bricks. Um, when we started, I started doing what I do, which is think of outside the box, so to speak, and I successfully was able to work with Sustainable Carolina, which is the sustainability arm of USC. They found a large facility for us to store a lot of the bricks, about half of them, at which point it left the other half in the mural bricks. And so luckily enough, I was able to find a local person who proposed to his wife here at Hunter and Gather, who makes trucks for roll-off dumpsters, who has since over this past week provided the cans, the dumpsters,
Cool.
because he makes the trucks for the guys who provide the cans. And I've been now loading those cans with these bricks, which will then be transferred to his property to be palletized later for the community to reuse these bricks. And all of that's been done through word of mouth, through conversations, and from people who believe in everything we're doing.
Keeping it circular.
Yeah. Yeah, right. And it can get done, that's the thing. So in addition just to the, I guess we could say maybe the more almost obvious beautiful experiences, working with Lauren, Jessica, for example, with the mural, all that's been beautiful. But it has spawned other relationships where people, the local community, has stepped up to help see this get done. And it was kind of, again, we had a plan that would have worked, but it would have allowed us to fulfill our contract and our mission to put these materials back into reuse, but it would not have been nearly as beautiful to what we're doing now. And that's because of the local community.
It's thoughtful, it's meaningful, and it's
Mhm.
purposeful.
Yeah. And by getting others involved, now they're invested,
Mhm.
right? They care about these materials even more so than they perhaps would have otherwise. And no doubt everyone I've encountered has cared about it, but that they have some skin in the game now, and to where they now have, for example, this gentleman Daniel has now several about 150 tons of bricks at his location, and so and now I'm invested and the community is invested, because we can't just leave them there like that. We have to palletize them, right? We have to put them on pallets and get them cleaned up. One thing I'm working with Daniel, and who, like, he makes the vehicles for these roll-off containers. So these bricks, the mortar is I would say probably half the weight, right? So we can do calculations based on the brick, but then you multiply it probably by 2 or 3 because of all the mortar. And so now that the bricks are in these cans, a lot of them still have the mortar attached to it, let alone some of it that I've scooped into it through the process of moving them. What we're going to do, we hope, is lay down some very thick tarps, have the bricks slowly come onto those tarps, and then pressure wash the mortar off of the bricks.
Yeah.
We'll then have a layer of the mortar underneath. So the bricks get palletized, and now we have a bunch of cement and mortar that we can reconstitute and use once again. And that's going to be really fascinating to kind of get into that. I've already accidentally done it because it's rained a few times, and the mortar that's fallen through some of the bricks, I've collected it, and I've now made a cement mixture out of it again. And it works. So it's
So
crazy. We
cool.
can, let alone adding that to some mud,
Huh? Well,
yeah, adding that to the clay if we needed to. I don't know. That would be your
exactly.
expertise. Yeah.
And it's not Portland cement, which
Right. No.
has fly ash in it, and if someone has sensitivities, they don't want to
Yeah.
use Portland cement.
Right. 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 I guess to me, yeah, and so that's where also want to be careful. I'd want to defer to the experts like yourself. In terms of it's not Portland cement. It's like a lime mortar.
Mhm.
And so but you know, I'm thinking of ways to kind of save everything.
Uh-huh.
So sometimes to my detriment, because it might not make. There are certain situations to where it can actually cause more situations than
Yeah.
not, but I try to push the limit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I know what you're saying. But one thing that came to my mind is using that aggregate for footers for
Hmm.
future
Yeah.
structures or buildings.
I like that. Yeah. 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 That'd be, and we have the molds for footers
Yeah.
at the lumberyard where we have the wooden molds. Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Well, okay, so Alan, a few more questions, and then I know you probably have to start going to
Yeah.
deconstruct.
Yeah.
But as
Yeah.
you were talking, I was looking across the room and I see a wood spindle. I'll send you a picture of it later, but it's a wood spindle about this tall from the Ocean Forest Hotel in Myrtle Beach.
Wow. Yeah.
So this was a huge hotel, for those who don't know, that was demolished, and all the locals were so upset because of the history of Ocean Forest Hotel. Well, a lot of the chandeliers, a lot of the furniture, the building materials were auctioned off before the building was demolished. So actually an old friend of mine, when she moved out of the area, she gifted me one of the Ocean Forest stairway
Yeah.
spindles.
Yeah.
And so I was just thinking about all these people that are walking by and picking up a brick. Like, they're probably going to hold on to that brick a long
Yeah.
time because it's
Yeah.
connected to something of historicity and something
Yeah.
of affection. So I
Yeah.
really, really love that you were just saying, yeah, take a brick and
Mhm.
remember. And
Yeah.
also, like, remember, not necessarily to act differently, but remember that we all have the empowerment to make change.
Mm.
And I think
Yeah.
that's part of what you're doing, is putting the power back into people's hands, that anybody can do this if they are excited about something. And
Yeah.
I think you and I are such, like, maybe unique breeds in the fact that we get emotional over old
Yeah.
materials,
Yeah.
but it's because you are so excited about what you're doing. And so you quite literally have like a funnel of vital life force just pumping through your body because you are just so passionate about what you're doing. So as you wrap up this project in Columbia, and as you come back to Conway, South Carolina, what are you bringing with you? What sort of inspiration? What sort of movement internally? What sort of change?
Yeah. I mean, ah, that's a wonderful question that other than I simply probably need to bring back with me some time to rest.
Definitely.
I'm exhausted. It's a lot of work. And so I haven't really had a chance to do much thinking about that except for kind of doing the best to live in the moment, which has been one of, I think, beautiful community experiences and involvement. I think what I will certainly bring back to me, back with me, when I have time to kind of sift through the experiences here, is that what has happened is an example of how it can happen. In other words, what I've witnessed here, along with Sarah and volunteers and um, uh, folks involved, is that a lot can get done when people come together. And this has been one of the most perfect examples I've experienced to date. And it's so what I think I'll certainly be thinking a lot about is how to reharness that in multiple ways. Because while we have gotten nothing but love and support in Conway, and I can't wait to get back, it's like I think the energy, bringing back that energy that we've seen here in Columbia, will be one of the things that I'll try to get going again.
Beautiful. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so I think they can follow along a lot with what we're doing on Conway_Salvage Instagram. So Conway Salvage, and then if anyone's interested in reaching out, they can go to our website, find out a little more. We do need to do some updating, but there's some information there that I think is helpful. It's conwaysalvage.org. And then if anyone wants to reach out to us, the info@conwaysalvage.org is our email.
Definitely follow Alan and Sarah on Instagram because you guys are posting some really cool photos of your projects on
Thank
your
you.
Architectural Salvage page, and it's quite inspiring to witness and be a part of. So, Alan, I am so stoked that we got connected because I
Yeah,
think you and I are definitely going to be collaborating in the
yeah,
future.
yes,
And I'm proud of you, and I know you're exhausted, and I know you guys are like, whew, let's take a break, and I hope you can get
yeah,
some rest. But just
yeah.
know you guys are just inspiring hundreds, if not thousands of people.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Lauren. I really appreciate it, and absolutely to some collaboration coming up. And be in touch as always. And thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it, and we will speak very soon.